Hello and welcome back to my channel, ShyWizard. I'm going to be taking a look at Farming Simulator 2019 here in the editor, and well, this is Felsbrunn that I've just made a sample mod map of. I want to have a look at triggers and how they are now allocated to maps in game, and how we can then adjust them to work with customized setups and whatever else. Because if we take the VGA here, which I think is a good example to work with, this at the moment as it stands is just a visual representation. It's nothing more. There's no triggers or anything assigned to this particular area from within the editor itself. It all relies solely on this new placeable mechanic that the game is based around, and then those triggers are added into the map as required by a series of XMLs and i3Ds that the system then works with. So what I want to do is first of all try and show how that trigger base is applied to Felsbrunn map here, which I believe is somewhat similar to the Raven port setup. And then also what I'm going to do is try and show how to use a customized BGA, which I've just taken a setup from Farming Simulator 17 and converted over to 19, and I'm going to then import that into the map and then show how to adjust the trigger setup and work with that, hopefully. So what I'm going to do first of all, if we go into the actual folder for the sample mod map here, we have this new XML called default items XML, and if I open that in Notepad++, we can see that all of the selling triggers and certain buildings, placeable buildings, decorative buildings mostly at the bottom here, they are all now added into the map through the placeable system via their file name and their position and rotation against the map. So we have the BGA that I'm going to be working with, and then the line of text here or whatever else, how this is set up. Now you have different items for different purposes. So for instance, a map bound ID would be something that's always going to be on the map irregardless of what difficulty level you play the game at, whereas other parts like these ones down the bottom here, they will only be there, or they won't always be there, I should say. They'll only sort of show up under certain difficulty settings. So if you play as a new farmer, then chances are they'll all be there because the game gives you everything to start with and a small part of land. But if you play on the most difficulty setting, which I forget the name of now, they won't be there because you have to build your farm up yourself with, from scratch sort of thing. And I'm still getting my head around certain aspects of how that works, but from what I understand, the map bound ID would be things that are always going to be in the map irregardless, and then if it doesn't have that tag on it, then basically it means it will be there or it won't be there depending on your difficulty level you're going to play. So going to look at the BGA, and we have this file name that's pointing to this XML here, and then that XML links into an i3D, which is the trigger setup for the BGA, and that will then be loaded into the appropriate place once you're in game. It's no longer in the editor or applied to the map directly. It's spawned into the map from the actual game itself. So if we locate where that XML is, and then I want to go into the placeables folder following this file name here, so placeables map.de and then BGA, and we have this i3D. And if I double click on that and bring it into the map, doesn't matter where you put it, it's just at the bottom of the scene graph, that's fine. And then I'm going to go Control B, which is interactive placement, and click over here. You can see now that we have this trigger set up which would be applied to this particular area for the BGA on the map, and this is what is actually spawned into the map in game through the placeable mechanic that the game is now based around. And then what we have is a set of attributes, translate XYZ and the rotate XYZ, which relates to the position and rotation in this XML, the default items XML. So I could basically take the position and rotation from here and apply it to my attributes in the editor, and that will then match perfectly where that trigger setup is going to spawn in when you're in game. So that's how that all works. Basically, the XML here, the default items XML, looks at this file name, which then looks at that i3D and loads those triggers into the map. It's a bit of a weird one, if I'm absolutely honest. I'm not sure if it's designed in a way to cut down file sizes of maps and things like that, which potentially would be, you know, a good thing, but as long as every BGA you work with follows this same design for the triggers. If you're using a custom one, then you have to modify the triggers to fit how that BGA is going to lay out on your map, which means you have to then create several more files and XMLs and all sorts of stuff and add them to your sample mod map. So I'm not really sure on that. I'm still trying to work with it, and I've never, well, let's say I prefer, where possible, to put things into the map as a prefab setup. Placeables for me just don't really do it, for lack of better words. With a placeable, or at least the way the placeable mechanic works has always worked in previous versions of the game, you're always restricted on where you can actually put something, be it the terrain angle, or whether it be your collision is too close to something else like a tree and you can't put it exactly where you want to put it, or whatever else. If you do it in the editor, you can level out the terrain and place it exactly where you want, and for me that's just a better way of doing things. But you know, I suppose for consoles specifically, they don't have that kind of ability, so the placeable system in this mechanic, the way it's done here, it works much better for a console design, I guess. Not sure on that again, but anyway, like I say, it is what we've got, so I'm going to try and work with it. So now that we know how that all links in together, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's come over to somewhere here. I think that'll be fine. What I'm going to do is try and put the BGA somewhere in this area. But first of all, I'm going to remove everything from the map. So I want to keep my career start point. I don't want any of that stuff, so I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to get rid of that and the roads, and we'll remove the triggers for now. And I don't really need any of that either. So the only thing I really want there is the career start point for now. I guess what I could do, let's just have a look and see where the shop trigger is, because I may potentially want to buy some vehicles. So what I will do is keep that, I think. So I'm going to take that from there and move it out, but then I'm going to remove everything else because I don't need any of the other stuff. So get rid of that, and that, and that should be fine. And I'll just move stuff around as I need to. What have we got over here? Don't need any of that. Yep, that's fine. Okay, so I've got enough here now to work with to do what I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom right out like so. And then I'm going to go Window, Terrain Editing, and I'm going to change over to Replace and Square Brush. Set my height at 80 for the terrain itself. I'm going to go Terrain Sculpt Mode. In Radius, I'm going to type in 1000 and hit Tab, and then I'm going to left click on my mouse and drag across the surface of the map here so that it completely flattens it out. Like so. And then what I'm going to do is create an area somewhere here that I can put a custom BGA somewhere like here. Will be fine. So what I want to do then is Terrain Foliage Paint Mode. Make sure you have under Foliage Layer Painting your terrain detail selected, and then right click and drag across any fields that you might want to get rid of if you're following along with this. And then I'm going to change over to the wheat, and I'm going to just remove any foliage that I don't particularly want in this area. Something like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and save. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize the Giants editor down. We'll close that for now. And I've got a BGA facility from FS19, and all I'm going to do is just bring that over and add it into my folder. And I'm just going to import that into the map as I would in previous versions. So just going to go File, Import, and then make sure I'm in the right folder here. Maps, and then BGA Plant and i3D. And I'm just going to Control B and click somewhere like so. And then if I rotate that around, maybe like that, that'll be fine. Yeah, that looks okay. We'll go with that. I think that'll be alright. And then what I'm going to do is, I might actually just raise that up thinking about it. Let's bring that up. Yeah, that'll be okay, that'll do, that's fine. So we now have a BGA setup which doesn't match anything from the base game maps. So this is where it comes into modifying the trigger setup to work with any customized building that you may have, you want to have on your map. So again, like I did before, I'm just going to go File, Import, go into my Farming Simulator installation folder, Placeables, MapDE, BGA, and import the trigger set again. So I'll go Control B and just put it somewhere close to where I want it to be. I'm just going to move that out to somewhere like that. And try and get this lined up best I can. Now luckily this particular setup for the silage clamps is a double kind of setup, similar in design, just not a drive-through one if you like. So I can at least use some parts of it to just to line up without too much modification required. So something in that particular area I think will be okay. And then what I'm going to do is come into the actual bunker silos here and adjust the actual set up somewhat a little bit different. So if I actually take that and bring that up somewhere like there, I think. And then I'm just going to reduce the size of that a little bit. Let's see what we have here. Yeah, something like that should be okay. Again, you might need to play around with it and get it a bit more precise than I am, but you know, that's fine. So if I take that from there and apply it to that one, it should match. That's fine. And then I also need to change my bunker silo area. So I'm just going to basically bring that back to just somewhere like that. That'll be fine. And then adjust the width if it needs it and the height. So we'll bring that back to somewhere like there. Will be okay, I think. That'll be right, at least for the video anyway. These sorts of things, again, like I say, will need to be potentially tweaked a little bit here and there to get them working 100%, but the idea is to show you how to do it and then you can perfect it as you go through. So if I take that one and apply it to that one, we should now have the interactive positions and all the other parts set up for that, so that's good. So all of those are now set up. That's for our silage clamps. Then I'm going to move the bunker triggers, the actual area where the silage is sold. So I'm just going to position this against the silo king here. If I try and get the height of it all the same, should be good to go. Something like that probably would be alright. Yeah, that'll do. So what we have then is in the trigger setup, you've got bale trigger. So you obviously want that to be over the actual area that you're going to put your bales in. In this case, for the silo king, I drop my bales into there. It will then destroy the bale. This is a bale destruction trigger. And then that will hit the exact fill rope node trigger and accept the fill type of whatever I choose to set that up as. So you need to make sure that the exact fill root node also incorporates where your bale trigger is, because otherwise you'll put your bale in, the bale destruction trigger will destroy the bale, but it won't then sell it. You won't get any money for it because it requires this trigger. This is the trigger that actually accepts the fill type of, again, whatever you choose to apply to it. So there needs to be, they need to be kind of, the bale trigger needs to be hovering above the exact fill root node trigger. Hopefully that makes sense. So that's all set up, and because I've moved it as one whole unit, it's moved the sound file and the light and everything for the appropriate parts that work with this. So we now have that all lined up and everything else. And because, one other thing I do need to do is for the digestate. So I'm just going to come over to here Control B, and I'll just put it somewhere close to where this pump is, and then I'll just raise it up slightly, something like that. I believe this was originally applied to a pipe or something like that, so you might need to make the trigger slightly larger for it to work in this particular scenario, because there's no pipe to line up to. There's no visual of where you would need to go, so you might need to perhaps maybe set something up there. If you're making a map for, you know, upload for other people to play on, then it might be beneficial to potentially make it an obvious area to go to get the digestate. But I'll make the trigger bigger, so that hopefully, and there goes my phone, magical. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set those back to what they were before, because I broke my rules. I don't like scaling transform groups. So what I'm going to do is actually scale the trigger separately. So we'll do like that. There we go, perfect. That should be okay. And then anywhere I go into there, I'll get my digestate. That'll be fine. Okay, so we now have our trigger set up, but obviously because the triggers aren't based in the map itself, they're linked into the map through the in-game placeable mechanic. I can't leave this in here. What I need to do is now export this out into my own sample mod map folder in its custom state, and then link it through the default items XML to my own XML for the BGA trigger setup. So what I'm going to do first of all, before I do that, is I'm going to reopen up the default items XML. When we looked at the BGA here, I'm going to now change the positions and any rotation values for my custom trigger setup. So if I come into here and take the attributes directly from the editor and apply those to the XML, everything should link in. So we'll place that like so. I've got no rotation, so I don't need to do anything there. So I'll go ahead and save that. And then what I can do is I'm just going to take the name BGA from there, that's fine. I'm going to go File, Export Selection with Files. And obviously make sure you've got your BGA, your trigger setup selected. File, Export Selection with Files. Make sure you're in the right folder. So we'll do this one, Maps. And it's up to you, you can do whatever you want here. You might want to potentially create another folder and then call this Placeables, for example, similar to how the Giants folder structure is set up, and then create another no folder and call this BGA, something like that maybe, and then put your BGA into there, and then save, keep the parent directory structure, yes. Now I can delete this from the map because I don't need it anymore in the map itself, so I can go ahead and delete that and save the map. So what I need to do now then, I'm going to close down the editor, is in my Placeables folder here for the BGA, I have my own i3D, which will be what I would, it's the same sort of setup as the one I used to import and set it all up, so it kind of follows the same design here. I've got mine in Maps Placeable, and this is Placeables and mapDE and BGA, so it's kind of following a similar pattern if you like, but on its own as an i3D it's of absolutely no use to me because it's loaded into the game through the XML. So what I need to do is, from my Farming Simulator installation folder for the BGA trigger setup, I need to take this XML and make a copy of it in my own BGA trigger setup. And then if I open this one up, I need to then point that, the file name in here, to my i3D. So I've got maps placeables BGA, so I basically just need to change all of that. So maps placeables BGA and then my i3D. So I can go ahead and save that. Everything else you can leave as it is, don't need to mess around with any of that stuff. So I can go ahead and close that one down, and then in my default items I need to change the path file name here for this XML. Now this is a little bit weird how this particular XML reads or locates other files. Because you need to put your map in your mod folder, it then needs to obviously find where that location is. So in here, instead of $data, we need to have $mod dir $, and then the actual map name. So if I close that down and take the map name here, and then I can paste that in, and then it will be placeables, sorry, then it'll be maps / placeables and then BGA, like so. So you need to make sure you get that file name correct for your map and where it's located and everything else. Obviously the $mod directory $ is always going to be that, and then whatever you decide to call your map, and then the folder that it's located in. So I actually need to put a / in there. So mine's obviously maps placeables BGA, and then all of the position and rotation will link up to there. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to delete all of this other stuff because it will cause a conflict because I haven't got any of it on the map. So we'll get rid of all of that. So at the moment all I'm going to be working with is just this BGA. So go ahead and save and close all that down. And the next thing then what we need to do is, because of the way the system works, because it is based around a placeable system, this XML also doubles up as your store items XML. Store items XML. So what you need to do is now tell the map where this XML is. It's not only do you need to tell it where it is for a default item, but you need to tell it for the store item as well. But the way that this particular XML is set up, it actually cannot be sold and it won't show in the store, so you can't purchase it anyway. The price is set to £1 anyway, or whatever currency that might be, Giants currency. So now what we need to do then is go into the modDesc and actually enter in the store item data down here. Now you can look at any placeable mod and get that information. I have the cell point 150 on my desktop here, so if I go into the modDesc for that, I can basically take the store item data from there, because this is a placeable, and copy that and put that into my own modDesc for the map. And then all I need to do then is just change the actual XML file name. So let's close that down. So again, mine is going to be maps placeables BGA, so I can add that into there. So let me get rid of that, and I'll go maps placeables BGA BGA.xml. So again, make sure you get that file name correct to locate that XML and go ahead and save. Placement, you can put it wherever you want, but just make sure it's in its own tag setup and not integrated with anything else. Again, this is a sample mod map, so there's very little in here at the moment. I can put my name in just to say it's mine, and then every single trigger that you put into the map that's modified in some way will need a store item and its own separate XML and potentially its own separate i3D setup for it to work correctly, because no matter what you do with it, if you use the Giants trigger setups, it's always going to follow what they've set it up for on either Felsbrunn or Ravenport. So to me, this is a really long-winded way about putting triggers in maps, but again, you know, it's what we've got, so going to go with it. And then we go ahead and save that, close all that down. So theoretically then, if I've linked everything together correctly, I've got my map bound item, which is the actual BGA or map bound ID, and then the actual class name, in this case is BGA Placeable. I've not found a list anywhere of what those class names are, but I'm sure that that will come eventually. But making the sample mod map through the Giants editor gives you a few examples to go by, because it creates this for you, so that's quite good. And you can just, you know, make a copy of that or whatever else you need to do, and build your class names up if you want to. And then you've got your file name for the XML that's custom XML that's located in my mod directory for my sample mod map, and then the position and rotation as required. So that's all good. We'll leave the default. Actually, yeah, I think I will. Let's. The other thing I want to just say is that for some unknown reason, when you create a mod map through the editor, it puts the $sign at the beginning of the data for the file name, and it's not required. Again, I'm working with a pre-release version of the editor, so that potentially will be something that's going to be fixed or has been fixed in later versions. But the beta version for me just seemed to be too unstable, so I'm using the pre-release version for that reason. But anyway, it's simple to just come in and make sure you delete the data at the $sign at the beginning of the file name, otherwise it will cause errors and tell you it can't locate certain things, and you won't get any of the vehicles spawn on the map. But otherwise that's fine. I just want to make sure that I've got everything where it needs to be, because I've done this video about 50 times now. So we should be good. Anyway, I'm going to test it, because I've always said there's a point where you get to when you're modding anything, and the only way you can move forward is to literally throw it in game, see what errors it throws up, and then work through them, because otherwise you just end up going round and round in circles trying to figure out what you've missed when potentially you might not have missed anything. So what I'll do is I'll get into game then, and we'll potentially get some chaff up together and test the functionality of the BGA system out completely. So yeah. Okay, so moment of truth then, if I've actually managed to get this all joined together correctly. If I come into here, bring up the F1 menu, yes, there we go. Level of chaff 0, compacting 0. So the interactive trigger is working in that one and in this one, fantastic. So that's a good sign. We have something at least. Console extension, what have we got here? That's nothing to worry about. That's to do with traffic collisions, because I've deleted certain things from the map. That shouldn't cause us any problems, I hope. So what I'm going to do then, we do have a number display showing up on the Silo King there, so that's another good sign. So I've just harvested a small bit of field there to get some chaff, so I'm not going to spend too long doing that. I just want to actually put some in here and put the cover over it, and then we'll ferment it. I'll get a telehandler or something to just make sure it can actually be sold. Now I believe the way that it works is a little bit different to previous iterations as far as I can understand. Now it sells at night, so it doesn't sell immediately. You basically put in however much you've got, or however much it's set to take, and then it churns away for the day, and at the end of the day you then get paid for however much it's processed. I believe that's the way it works. So if I come in here, we'll just bring up the menu again so I can see what's going on. I'll try and compact this down. I did put it in a bit of a highish pile here, but that's okay. Shouldn't take too long to level this down a little bit. Like I said, once it's all compacted, I'll put the cover over it. It should allow me to do that with this amount in here, I hope. And then I'll speed up time, get it fermented, take the cover off. I have heard or seen or been told by people that there are problems with the VGA. The cover won't remove. You've got a fully fermented silage clamp, and no matter what you try to do, the cover just will not come away. It just stays there all the time. You can press R, drive up to it with a bucket or shovel or whatever you want to call it, and it just stays there. It will not, the cover will not remove no matter what you try to do. I don't know if that's something that everybody is experiencing or just a few or whatever, but hopefully that's not going to be the case here. I would like to really be able to test this out properly. So that'll do. That's level enough. That'll be alright. It's compacted enough that I should be able to put the cover on anyway. So if I come in here, right, R2 blanket silo, and there we go, fantastic. So now we have the silo all covered and it is fermenting, so that's nice. So what I'll do is I'll just speed up time here, try and get through the day a bit quicker. And you can see there fermenting side is going up quite rapidly, so that's good. Might even ferment by the end of the day, but I would like to do this in the daytime if possible. But we'll just see how long that takes to come around. While that's doing that, I'd love to hear from you guys to see what you're thinking of the game so far. What do you think of the placeable mechanic that's now in the game? Have you had any issues or glitches or whatever else that you'd like to share? Let me know in the comments. That would be great. I've had my fair share of problems here and there. Nothing potentially game breaking. I'm able to play the game, but there are some things which need to be tweaked a little bit by Giants, I think. But anyway, we are now fermented at 100%, so let's see. And I'm still trying to work out where everything is in the store here, so I'll get a telehandler. Let's go for the big boy, so get that one. Yeah, that's fine. Oops. And buckets, now where are they? Still trying, there we go, telehandlers. So we'll get a shovel by that, and then we'll go and well, now will it actually let me take the blanket off? This is the question, because it's now fermented, but I'm not getting any kind of prompt to remove the cover, and this is the problem that other people I believe have had as well. After it's fermented and it's got to 100%, unless I'm doing something wrong here, and if I am, please let me know. There may be a new mechanic in the game that's, you have to do this a different way, but as far as I was aware, you come in and you press R and it then removes the blanket, but for whatever reason that doesn't seem to be working, and I don't think that's something to do with this modified version of the VGA. It seems to be something that's happening even in the base games. So what I'll do is save me walking over there. I'll drive this over to the telehandler and I'll come in with the bucket to see if that will actually remove it instead. So let's do this. And we'll grab the bucket. There we go, magic. And I hope that this is actually going to do what I want it to do, because that will be really annoying otherwise. After doing all this and then I can't actually get the silage out of the clamp. So let's see what happens. No, of course not. Why would it work? Oh dear Giants, what have you done to your game? Oh, there we go. Set it then. Open silo. Ah. Okay, that was interesting. Well, at the end of the day it's working, so that's all good. I'm okay with that. I just wanted to test the damn silage. See if I could sell it. That's what I want to do. Ah, there we go. Now it's actually working. Okay, so let's do that. And we have some silage in the bucket, or shovel, or whatever you want to call it. So we'll take this over and see if it will actually be accepted into the Silo King. Now the good thing is, because this has actually got the display there, I know that when I tip this I can read the display and I know that it's either going in or it's going on the floor. So, oh look at that, magical, that is going in perfectly. So yeah, there are some glitches there I think, but you know, that's something that I really hope Giants are working on to figure that out. Not really sure why it wouldn't open for me the first time. Perhaps maybe I sped up time too fast and it needed a catch up. I don't know. But you know, at the end of the day we've now got something working there, and that is going down slowly. So what I'm going to do then is 771 is what I've got on my money. So let's speed up time again here. And yeah, so it's gone down to 0, but I haven't been paid. So I'm pretty sure that if I speed up time some more and get round to the end of the day, I should then see my money come in at the end of the day. I just want to check and make sure that this is actually working before I upload it. You know, there are going to be certain things that are out of my control until Giants actually fix it. But the base stuff I really would like to actually have working in a video, so I'm not misleading anybody. But hopefully we'll get round there at some point and get paid for our silage. Getting close now. There we go, perfect. So yeah, at the end of the day I got paid out, biogas plant income, all perfect. So that is actually working, and I'm just going to get round to some daylight here. So that is actually working. We do have the custom BGA with the custom trigger set up, all working. The silage clamp there a bit glitchy, but again that's on Giants to fix, I think, because I've heard of people having the same problem even in the standard in-game maps where the cover in the clamp won't remove properly. So you know, that's again, like I say, out of my control. But I'm sure that they're on the case and they will get that sorted out sooner or later. Yeah, and then you know, I'm able to tip it in and it does recognize it in the actual sell point there in the Silo King, and it then does eventually give me my money at the end of the day. So all working as far as I can tell. And again, you know, error wise, the traffic collisions is just basically because I've removed various things from the map that it required to do with traffic splines and various other different things. But as far as the rest goes, there's no errors there to do with the BGA, and clearly I've got silage now fermented in the clamp and all working as intended, glitches aside. So if I come around to this one will say 0, obviously because there's nothing in there, but it's worth checking just to make sure that they are showing up as separate clamps. But yeah, we now have everything there, I think, as best as it's going to be. The only thing I would say is they've changed the way you used to be able to come over to the trigger for the digestate and it would actually tell you how much you've got in there. It no longer seems to do that, and I haven't obviously got the fill plane set up to be moving because of the way things have changed a little bit again now. That seems to be something of the past, moving fill planes in the game, at least as standard anyway. So but you know, at the end of the day, I don't really care about that. That's fine as long as the functionality works. That's okay. So I'm okay with that. So what I'm going to do then is really quickly, just to test this, if I can, I'm going to get hold of, to finish up here, if I can find it, and I still, like I say, working through all this stuff to try and find where everything is. So what I want, fertilizer, slurry tanks. Let's go with that, shall we? Slurry tanks, digestate. Yeah, we'll do this one because I haven't got a truck. I could buy one, I suppose, but we'll just do this. That's fine. We'll buy that. It's only to just test the trigger works. So let's do that. Let's tab through some vehicles here. Get to my Fent 1050, and we'll connect this up and just test that the actual digestate does work. It will actually give me digestate from the trigger. Don't see why it wouldn't, but you know, at the end of the day, it's always worth just testing these things to be sure. So let's bring up the F1 menu here so I can actually see what's going on, and I hope that it now, when I get into the right place here, start filling digestate. Fantastic. And there we go. So we've got a little bit of digestate in there, and that has actually now emptied it out. So everything there, as far as I can tell, is working the way it's meant to be, just obviously with a somewhat custom setup, which I really hope helps you guys out building up your custom maps and how to now work with the placeable mechanic to get your triggers into the appropriate areas for the functionality of the buildings to work. Cell points, silo triggers, all these different things now are going to be exactly the same in the way that they are imported into the game. So when you set up your cell points, you'll need to work with the triggers and then set up the default items XML to point to whatever trigger you want to bring in through the XML, and so on and so on. But I will be doing further videos for that later on, but I wanted to start with the BGA because I think that this was a really good one to demonstrate my point of how the placeable system can work with default items, default items and also custom items in the map, and how we can then join all those parts together. I'm ShyWizard, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.